you have this unique perspective, or I guess, is it fascination with, I think you called it like the underground economy, right? And this capitalism world of...
Maybe. I guess
I've
been exploring that for a while, and I guess my last maybe 6 films have explored it in some degree or another. Yeah.
Just that's a vein, and I think it's interesting.
But I just, it's, I have, when people ask me why I'm making these films, it's usually because it's a response of what I'm not seeing enough of in U.S. film and TV, and just stories that I want to, to spend time with, perhaps communities, microcosms, subcultures that I find interesting that I want to learn more about. So it's a way of exploring for me as well.
And this is a straight up pandemic film, I guess, is what we're calling these things now. Straight up pandemic. And I think, and Simon, you're in our Indie Contenders panel, which is tomorrow on our virtual part of the festival. And you mentioned this then about how you got involved and how quickly that happened. But I'd like to hear from Sean and you and everyone about, like, this happened pretty quickly at the time. You had it kind of in the works, but it...
Yeah. I'll be brief. Essentially, this is a COVID film because not only shot during COVID, but because of COVID. We were working on another film that got completely put on hold because of the pandemic, something that couldn't be shot then. So we turned to this idea that Chris Brigash, who's in the audience tonight, my co-writer on the last 4 films. We had this, I mentioned Starlet in the intro. When we were doing research in the adult film world at that time, we came across this archetype that we wanted to explore, this suitcase pimp that we found. We met a handful of men that were like Mikey Saber. So we knew this was an idea that we'd return to someday. And when the opportunity arose with COVID, to make a smaller film, we said, yeah, let's finally tackle this. And Simon was on my mind since the beginning. I mean, like when we were after Florida Project and we were saying which film next, and I said, if it's Red Rocket, it's going to be Simon. And then that didn't happen right away, but hey, it eventually did.
Yeah. And so how did this, I mean, how did it come together? Because you're very, one of your strengths, I think, is how you're involved in the casting process. So like you knew Simon. You just call him up, and that's what I think you were talking about. Is like
we did get his direct line. Why don't you tell the story?
Yeah, so basically, I have a friend who's very close with Sean's sister, Stefanik, who worked on the movie as well.
Production designer.
And does the music as well, some of the music. Yeah, and she basically reached out to me and said, hey, it was, July of last year, I want to say, maybe towards the end of July. During the pandemic, obviously, and I was just sitting around. I moved out to the desert, and I was just sitting around in a Joshua Tree, kind of just like we all were, just wondering what the fuck's going on. And I get a call, and she's like, "Hey, Simon, what are you doing for the next month?" I'm like, "Nothing." And she goes, "You know who Sean Baker is?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." He's interested. He wants to call you. Can I connect you guys? So basically, he reached out to me and asked me if I would put myself on tape for the first scene of the movie where I come to her house to try to beg to get in. And it was just a part of that scene. So I quickly did on my iPhone, because obviously nowadays you could audition on your phone. And I just put it on my kitchen counter, and I did a cold read of one paragraph. And he just off one cold read, he's like, "All right, you got it." Yeah. So I drove. He goes, "But I need you to be out here in Texas in 3 days. And if we fly you here, we have to quarantine you for 7 days, which would fall into production. So can you just be here right away? We have a rental car for you right now." And I got the script. I said yes before I even read the script, because I wasn't about to say no to doing a movie with him. And then I read the script, and I was like, whoa. But I basically drove 3 days straight there and just deleted all my social media so I wouldn't have any distractions, because as you saw, that was a lot of dialogue, and we just got right into it really quickly. So it was just one of those crazy ones. This doesn't happen.
But I have to say, he landed in Galveston 3 days later with pretty much all of those monologues learned. I don't know who was driving, because it was pretty
my
impressive.
Ex-girlfriend and me.
And then how about Bree and Suzanna here? Like,
Yeah, hi. So firstly, I think I might just die if I don't tell you. My mother's in the audience tonight. I know. So I just want to say I love you, Mom. Hey, all the way in the back. Yeah, so it's a beautiful little Los Angeles story. I had just moved to LA 9 days before this. I went to the ArcLight Theater to see He Won't Get Very Far on Foot, great movie. And I just ran into Sean Baker, or he ran into me. I didn't recognize him, but he told me, hey, I directed the Florida Project. And I went, oh my goodness. And then 3 years later, I auditioned with a self-tape similar to Simon and got the part, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was. That's why you should always go to the movies. See movies in the theater. No, we saw Suzanna come into the lobby, and Samantha Kwan and I, my wife and partner, who's a producer on this film and many other roles as well. We saw her across the lobby, and we just said, "Who is that? She has that quality." And so we said, "We don't have anything right now, but we street cast and let's exchange information." And it worked out beautifully.
And Bree?
I was doing a play in Portland at the time when COVID hit, so the whole show shut down. I was having all of the same feelings of existential dread of being an artist and are we ever going to return to the stage, all of that. And I got a call from Sammy Kwan, who I went to NYU grad acting with, and she's an amazing actor and a producer on this film and an amazing acting coach as well. And she said, we've shifted gears and we are doing a passion project of Sean's. And I was working out and I dropped a barbell. I thought Bree would be perfect for this. And I said, well, what is it? And she said, well, she is a former porn star who's addicted to heroin. And I said, yeah, you're right, Sammy. You're right. That's in my wheelhouse. So she gave me a monologue to work on. I worked on the monologue, and then I self-taped and submitted it, and then same got the call, and then we all showed up in Texas.
And the rest is history on the screen. So there wasn't much of a rehearsal, let's say. You just kind of were.
Time for rehearsals. We did. Yeah.
Very little. I mean, yeah, but what, one afternoon? No, I'm just saying it's okay. But I think it helped because we didn't overthink it. That was the whole thing.
But I black out productions. I don't remember.
It was like, yeah, I mean, you probably had it all in your head. But as far as like, we actually just, that one afternoon in the backyard, we just blocked kind of that first scene.
They
and
impressed
that
me
was
very
it.
much so in that first rehearsal. I knew that they had the characters already. And I was surrounding these three with first-time actors, and we didn't know their level of skill yet. So we didn't know how incredible Brittany Rodriguez is, who plays June in the film, and how incredible Ethan Darbone is, who plays Lonnie. But still, I knew I was going to be surrounding them, and there's always, that risk of things not going right. But I knew on that first day of rehearsal that I could rely on these two for just always being there and always being able to rely on them in every way.
Can we talk a little bit about Texas? Only because that is also a character. I think we were talking about this offline a little bit, of being there in that time and also feeling as though that is another character in the film. How do you all did that in a pandemic where you're in the Gulf Coast? It's a pretty interesting place, only because I'm from there. But tell me a little bit about how that felt, like going from the desert to Gulf Coast. It's pretty.
Yeah. It was great actually, because working on location, and we had a very small crew of 10 people was our crew. So it really felt like a student film, and in the best way.
Many levels.
In the best way.
A lot of pizza.
Yeah. And it wasn't, it was basically, low budget, obviously indie, small, but being able to play in the world with those real locals in Texas who were so sweet and opened up their doors. Like the location of the house that we shot in was the local guy, the dog Sophie, they found under the porch, and we nursed her back. Well,
she lives here
didn't.
In Los Angeles.
When I say we, I meant they did.
Yeah,
nurse the dog back to life. Yeah. And
lives
she was
in Los Angeles.
Big part of the movie. And we just made, they just really, really sweet people. And they just let us into their homes and then opened up to us. And it was fun to get to act with locals, real people with the real environment compared to working on a set in Burbank with a facade and a bunch of extras who are all not from. It just felt very real. So it actually, for me personally, made everything a lot easier to play in a real world. You know, so I loved it.
I felt like just driving into Texas, because we all had to drive there, and just driving into that area and seeing the background of all the refineries and the smoke coming out, and you just feel this ominous nature, and you feel it just, if there's power, there's money, there's danger. And I feel like I was feeling that already from doing something during COVID. This was one of the bigger things that I'd done during COVID, because I had been pretty contained. And so I feel like that kind of added to the film itself, the feeling that we were able to capture in the film. I felt like the area was definitely a character.
Yeah, it was beautiful. You don't see a lot of movies or stuff in Texas, so it's fascinating. And Galveston has a special place in my heart. The strip club, donut shop. Yeah, I love it.
And then I have another question before we open it up to the audience, but In Sync.
Yeah.
I will never think of that song the same way. Tell me about that choice.
Well, I'm just so happy they agreed to it. I mean, and I have to say it's because of Suzanna, actually, because I discovered when we first started, in pre-production, that Suzanna is a musician, is a performer, teaches piano, and I was like, okay, we're gonna display her talent in a scene. And that's when we were like, well, what song should she sing? And that's how it got to In Sync. So, I mean, it had to be contextually linked to the film, and we thought that would be the perfect song. And it's also like, in a way, it's almost like casting an A-lister in your movie, You take the biggest pop song that everybody knows, you put it in, it helps. I think it's... who knows what'll happen in the future? I mean, I just like mixing it up with actors who have at all levels of experience, from none at all to like Willem Dafoe, who's been in the industry for almost 50 years. So I there's a nice alchemy that I see when you mix people of those different again levels of experience. But who knows? I'm not. But there's one thing I should say. Spike Lee has been a major influence on me in my entire career, and probably the reason I pursued NYU film, because of him and Jarmusch. And Spike Lee always has that thing of bringing fresh faces to this big screen, and I was so happy to always say. I mean, I remember seeing Samuel Jackson for the first time in Jungle Fever. And, who is that? Oh my God, this guy's amazing! And just Spike Lee, the way he would give fresh faces to the camera. I mean, to the audience. New talent and everything. I love that, and I think that's been one of the major reasons to follow in his footsteps. Hopefully, going into this, representation is extremely important for me with all of my films, and I never want to in any way insult or disparage an entire industry. I make it clear, and I try to make it clear during all of when I talk about the film, that this is about an archetype that I found within the adult film industry, a very specific person that doesn't represent the entire industry. That's why you even use that term. We throw that term out there. He's not that suitcase pimp term. He's not just a former adult film star or a porn star as he thinks he is. He's also a suitcase pimp. He's one of those guys that lives off, other people in the industry. And so that being said, we knew it was risky, and we knew but we wanted to do it the right way. We brought 5 consultants on board, 4 from the adult film industry, 1 being a sex worker from outside the adult film world. And they read the script, they gave us notes, and they told us how they wanted the character of Lexi to be portrayed. They gave us notes on even Strawberry, and we applied all of those, and we were very appreciative of those. And I think we got to a place where, yes, there's always that risk that someone will look at a character and say, is this supposed to represent everybody or a whole group of people? That's where you have to rely on the audience to to bring that maturity when they're seeing the film.
Can I add to one thing though? Because I think the suitcase pimp thing, because I don't think they're laughing at what it is. It's the term most people have never heard. I would argue most people in here have never heard that term before, because I know I didn't when I read it and I looked it up. So I don't think it's laughing at what it is. It's the name is kind of catchy and funny. So maybe that was the response, because I think when I first read that term, I'm like, oh, what's that? It's a cool name.
I don't completely agree. I've spoken to audiences about how they see it, and they see him as one thing and Lexi as another. And then when, and it's a very, and also, this is one film. This is one film. I've also made a film called Starlet, which I feel perhaps might give you a different feeling on the way that I approach it.
I also want to say, I think, and we'll wrap it up pretty soon, but I think Simon's character in particular, because we had a lot of conversations with our programming team, but I definitely know people that were like so put off. And it's like, well, yeah, he's not a likable person. It takes a lot to be invested in this character on this journey, and the humor in it is you have to balance this, like, this is uncomfortable. How do I release that, right? And so I think there's it's a really interesting dynamic. And Simon, congratulations. I think you pull it off fantastically. But I think that is a very fine line to walk.
Can I briefly say, I think after
now you're thinking
comments, and what you just said there, the reason that Chris and I actually found this archetype fascinating, so much so that we wanted to focus an entire film on this person, was that when we were hanging out with these men, we were entertained, we were laughing, we were enjoying the moment, because on the surface, they are charming, they are appealing, and they're freaking funny, and they're entertaining. Driving home at the end of the night, we'd be like, wait, we were laughing at that? Like, that's horrible shit. Like, that guy has a real toxic effect, a negative effect on another person, has messed up other people's lives. And we're like, we were enjoying that person's company. And there was that the way I had, I was almost of two minds about it, where I was very torn inside about it. It was that feeling that I could hardly tackle myself, but I wanted to tackle it and put it out on the screen and almost have the audience sit in the same discomfort that I felt when I was hanging out with these men. And I'm sorry to do that, but it was a challenge of mine, and it was something that I felt was important to capture the truth of it. So,
and can I add one other thing? And I think it's not just that this type of person that Mikey Saber is not just the adult film industry. There's plenty of that narcissistic, sociopathic person in Hollywood. I'm sure they're in big tech, they're in DC, they're every Wall Street. That person who will do whatever it takes to get to the top and is delusional and has delusions of grandeur and doesn't care. That's everywhere. So it's really not, I think the personality type isn't really connected to the career path. It's what it is.
This is in this one slice of it.
I think.
Yeah.
This film especially had a lot of things being improvised behind the camera, because shooting during COVID, there's like a disaster every day. Something's about to happen every day. I mean, none of us got sick. We were a safe set. We, obviously everything went well, but you're always, you're a small pot of people dealing with, where you can't actually be in public spaces all the time. So you're making stuff up and you're pivoting. But I say probably the biggest thing that changed from the script was just again, it was a lot of serendipity and a lot of happy accidents, like a ton of it. Like, we were blessed. A lot of every day there seemed to be a miracle, even after a problem. And it was in development. We had the Strawberry was working at a food truck outside the refinery, not a donut shop. And Alex Coco, one of my wonderful producers, we were just in Port Arthur, and we passed Donut Hole, and we just slammed on the brakes, and we were like, oh my God, if we don't take advantage of this, we are morons. This works on every level. You have the refinery right there. You have the colors here. The sexual connotations, and then also the link to one of my previous films. I'm like, wow, we got to make this happen. So that's probably the biggest thing that we just took advantage of in the moment, and that wouldn't be able to happen on studio film. You'd have to go back to the WGA and get fixes with, you know what I mean? So, we had a lot of that freedom to quickly pivot.
And I would also add, we also talked about Sophie, but Sophie wasn't in the script. There wasn't a dog in the script at all. And so Sophie became like a happy accident that became Lexi's dog. And that was such a sweet discovery to have her, because I think she adds such a beautiful element to the film. She's like the chorus of the film. You just look to her to be like, what is she going to say?
We have to wrap it up, but congratulations again on the film. Thank you all for being
Thank you very
here.
much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for being here. Don't forget to vote on your way out, and see
December
Red Rocket.
10th. A24 is putting it into theaters December 10th.
There we go.
Yeah,
Thanks,
okay.
A24.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.